Welcome back to the podcast. And today we have Peter Panagore. Peter Panagore sounds like Peter Panagore. Maine.
Banger, man. I see what you did there. Know. I see what you did. It was a worthy shot.
It was worthy. Listen, I don't know if I fully got it through.
But you got it, man. Like, I could tell that you have it.
I didn't work hard either. It just
came to you. Hey, Peter is a guy who has a fascinating story. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you right now, Peter, for people that have had an NDE, he is my Superman in the comic book collection.
Oh, well, shit.
Peter is and when Heather brought him to me, and I said, wait, you have who's? So she gave me a list of people, okay? Mm-hmm. Peter was probably like the second. And I told her, I wanted to tell her, you don't even have to go further with that list. Not to dismiss other people's experience, but Peter is a very high, resonant being on my list of like to-dos, right?
You've actually seen him before, haven't you?
Yeah. So when I had my NDE experience, he was one of the very first stories that I've heard that resonated well with me. Even the ones after that couldn't hold a flame to his story,
right?
Because I resonate well with his story. But the fact that, when I returned back with my bullshit meter, I could tell Peter was genuine and he had a real experience, and I just thought to myself, this guy just saved my life. I'm not alone.
Right.
At that time I was clawing for any substantial substance of information.
Right.
And he gave that to me unknowingly,
Oh, yeah.
So to have him on the show, it means a lot to me. Just so you know the pedigree that
there
this guy
you are,
has.
Peter.
So with that said, here's Peter Panagore, and he's going to just tell us his story. Brother knows nothing about it.
That's how I like it.
That's how he loves it. I've been privy. So Peter, introduce yourself. Tell them where the Peter train has been, where it's going. Hold no bars, sir.
I will hold no bars. And I also came back with a bullshit meter, and I appreciate it when I meet it in person, because near-death experience can radically change a person's perception of oneself and the relationship to the world. And it can get better and better and better in terms of integration if one leans into the light inside oneself. And that means more tolerance for people who are different than you, but very little tolerance for people who are trying to bullshit you.
That is very correct.
And it's been a blessing and a curse in my life, LaMar. It's gotten me in a fair amount of trouble because it makes me difficult to control.
Oh yes. Well, when you've reached the precipice of something that's like life shattering, reality shattering, paradigm shifting, however you want to call it, you come back with this I really don't give a shit attitude, because nothing phases me. I've shed that former self of the past, and I've been enlightened. And for me not to be my true self from here on out after that experience is a disservice to me, my friends, my family, and everyone around me. So I agree, Peter. 100% you come back different.
And then everybody around you, you're a new person.
Correct.
And so everybody around you, so if all your relationships are like a spider web attached at all these corners, you come back and you're yanking on this web. It takes a new shape, and all your relationships change as a result. And in my case, I hid my near-death experience for 20 years, but that didn't mean that I wasn't yanking on the web. It's just that I wasn't being open and honest about what had happened to me, because I was afraid people were going to think I was crazy.
Right.
And plus, I didn't really know how to talk about it.
Right.
So anyway, I should probably tell you the story.
Well, yeah, but real quick, what prompted, what was the catalyst to you wanting to talk about it?
Oh, well, it was more like, what decision did I make to keep my mouth shut for 20 years?
Yes.
And what finally happened?
This is where you give me the JFK experience.
Right, exactly. So I came back with this compulsion to speak about it, but I was pretty pissed off, because even though this roaring energy inside me was telling me to convey this, it gave me no language or concepts about what it is. The energy was there, the presence was there. I was living inside a new self in a new world, but how to do that was it was like, okay, kid, here's your jackknife and one match. Now you're on this island. Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. No instructions, but
Total
have at it.
castaway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so then I finally came out of my closet when there was this, I was a church minister, and which is another reason why I swear a lot, because people would be around me saying, "Oh my God, don't swear in front of him." I'd be like,
Yeah. No, Peter, stop right there.
Yeah.
You go ahead and say "fuck that," Peter, because I'm a fan of adjectives. Being my former cop self, some ways you have to address people, and you being from Boston it's like a typical meet and greet. You know what I mean?
It is. It's totally is.
But it's totally subjective. Like people use the words in different meanings for different sayings. I've heard it used in loving ways. I've heard it used in hateful ways. So
that's right. It's an all useful adjective.
It's all subjective.
Yes, it is, sir. Onward.
So anyway, I finally came out of my little NDE closet after this big embezzlement in the church that I was serving. That was a couple of decades old, with the previous embezzlers protecting the current embezzler, and the poison that spread through, and the battles that we fought in order to figure out where the money was going and what was going on and how it all happened. And as they tried to destroy me, this former vice president of oil company, and this former CIA spy, and a lawyer who's now in jail for embezzlement himself, and a commodities broker, tried to organize my demise professionally, politically, interpersonally, socially, culturally, everything, financially. And when we finally beat them and we caught the embezzler, I finally trusted the congregation and the church to tell them the truth, because one Sunday after all this was over, and it lasted a long years and years, and when it was finally all over, one of the deacons came up to me before church and said, "So you must have had a lot of faith to put up with what we put you through." And it was statewide news. It was pretty awful.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally decided I should probably finally tell them I don't have any belief or faith at all. And now that they trust me, I can trust them. And so I climbed in the pulpit that morning and I told my story, my near-death experience story, for the first time publicly, unexpectedly to me and unexpectedly to them. But what I was trying to convey to them is that because I had this incredibly transformative experience where I came back an entirely different person with a direct connection to the divine, that I never really worked for them. I only ever worked for God. And as a result of that, that's why I was so difficult to control by the people who were trying to control me, because I didn't really care what they were trying to do to me. It hurt.
Right.
But ultimately, you can't kill me. I don't die. And I'm getting out of here in the end. So whatever happens to me here, I'm still going to maintain this interior connection. And so I told my congregation that I wasn't actually a believer. I wasn't a believer at all. All my belief systems were erased from me when I died and came back. And then it turned out within about a week, 6 other people in my town who'd been keeping the same secret came to me. You know, people who had died, had been, the paddles, they come back and that kind of thing. At the time, this was in the early 90s, and I died in 1980, the first time, it wasn't very popular to talk about. And so they whispered it in my ear. Nobody wanted to be misperceived as insane. But now there's some people in my town, and there's a half a dozen probably altogether. One of them is super, super rich. One of them is super, super poor. And they're of the same cut of cloth, so to speak. They are made of light, and it's visible. I can see it.
Right. I have a question for that. When you came back and so throughout the congregation, whoever these people were, the higher ups, I don't know their titles, but after your experience and you're witnessing the behavior, like what does that do to you inside and with your faith? Like how are you able to manage that and to keep that in while witnessing what was going on?
I just kept diving deeper inside myself. I went to a Catholic high school, a little background. I was raised Greek Orthodox and Roman Catholic, which were 2 churches that hated each other and were at war for about 1,000 years. And one church was on one block and one was on the other. So, and they both down talked the other one all the time. And I realized even as a kid that they both couldn't be telling the truth.
Right.
Somebody's got to be right. Somebody's got to be wrong, or they're both wrong. And I landed in the both wrong category. But I went to Catholic high school and I learned meditation while I was there. I learned this thing called centering prayer. At the time it was called contemplative meditation. It was back in the late 70s. I took to it immediately. And I then, after my NDE, found Kriya Yoga from a fellow by the name of Patanjali. The Yoga Sutra is about 3,000-year-old book still in print. And it was a tool, a guidance tool for practice. I combined these two practices in my own interior life, and they are the stability of everything I've ever done in my life. So when these people were attacking me, the more terrible it became, the deeper I dove inside myself. The deeper I dove inside myself, the more balance I had in the world. And so there is this paradoxical thing where instead of trying to integrate myself back into this world, which I couldn't do, it was not even, every time I tried, I failed. I found that the forces that were trying to hurt me became the motivator for my journey inward, which turned out to be my strength in order to endure whatever they were throwing at me, because you can't kill me.
Right.
I know who I am. I know where I'm from. I know what I'm made of, and I see the world. I see the temporary nature of the world. But I also see the depth of the light that makes all things exist. So as long as I lean into the light inside myself, I'm more able to see it in the world. And so these people never became my enemies, my personal enemies. I didn't hate them. I did my best to throw them off balance. So you can't see it now because I don't wear it anymore. I wore a big golden earring for the longest time in the pulpit just because it pissed him off.
Right.
And for no other reason. And anything I could do to throw them off balance, I did. But I didn't ever hate them because I could still see the light inside them.
Right.
As dark as especially the CIA guy was, he still had the sparkle inside that I couldn't deny.
Right. Yeah.
Well, now I'm really curious to hear this story.
Right. Yeah. It's a great builder, but it also gives you, like, this is what I stress, right? For us NDEers, and I want to get this out to the people. Everything that Peter's gone through and seen and witnessed, being defiant with the earring and all this other stuff, we still subject ourselves to the human experience, and we're not given this like euphoric or gift to where we can just totally dissolve and shed the human experience. We lapse into it. I find myself judging people at times, doing the human shit that we normally do. And I embrace that about me because it's what I signed up for and it's what I want to be. I don't want to be perfect. I'm not perfect. Nothing about this life is perfect. And to the fact that you said it's temporary, I've held on to that. If anything, from my experience, that all the shit that we go through, think about, and experience, it's just temporary in a bat of an eye. So why hold on to it? Why give a shit? You know, I'm not saying don't enjoy your life experience, but enjoy it.
Right.
You know, enjoy your mistakes and your flaws. So for Peter, I'm telling you, everything about what you're saying, I just want people to take that away.
Right.
You know, take that away. We didn't come back with this super high gift of just being separate from everybody. Peter and I cannot disconnect ourselves
no prophets,
from
basically.
the consciousness.
Right.
Yeah, you just can't do it. That's
Right.
like detaching yourself from source, God, or whatever.
Right.
You're not going to do it.
Right.
So, but with that, I mean, now you sparked his interest, which I'm glad. You got to get into that
I like a good
story,
build
sir.
up.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
All right. So you made me think of 1,000 things I'd love to respond to, but I'm going to.
Well, hold on, Peter. If you want to respond to some shit.
Let's tell the story, and then we'll have all the time to
Right.
respond.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell
Just
the
don't
story
forget
first.
those responses.
I probably will, because it didn't change my brain. So let me just say
Right.
this.
Yeah.
I was ADHD when I left and
Right.
dyslexic,
Yeah.
and I was when I came back. So
Oh, there's no cure-all?
no cure for that. Not
Yeah.
yet anyway.
Hey,
So, all right. So I was a college student. This is 1980. And little background. I'm from the Boston area. I don't have an accent. It was removed from me by a succession of theater and diction teachers because I worked as a professional communicator.
Okay.
So but I am from that area, and my sister had run away when I was a kid, 14, and she was 18, which is, people are, well, she's 18, but what it left was an open wound in my family, a festering, infected wound that never healed. When someone dies, there's a service, and one can move on, never forget, but one can move on, and a scar grows over, but there was no scar in my mom and my dad's life, which meant I was trying to get the hell out of there.
Right.
So as soon as I could leave, I went on exchange to Montana State University in Bozeman. I was at a UMass English major. And I went out west to go skiing and backpacking and get away from my family. That's really what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And come spring break, I decided not to go back for a visit because I'd gone back at Christmas time and I'd worked. I worked in construction all the way through college. And so I worked in construction and I had a terrible time with my dad and my mom. And I was like, I just don't want to be there. And so I decided to go on a high adventure. I'd been on the ski patrol. I'd been backpacking since I was a Boy Scout my whole life, winter, summer, spring, and fall. Done a lot of the White Mountains in New England and all that stuff. So I decided to go on an adventure. And I'm gonna skip the high adventure part and just tell you a little bit about it. It was we had 2 weeks off, and so we went on a 10-day snow caving, ice climbing expedition.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a guy who had similar level of experience with me, and we had complementary skills. He was a certified lead ice climber. I had never ice climbed. I'd been mountaineering a bunch, rocks and ropes and high level backpacking and that kind of stuff. And I'd been a lot of winter camping. And I was on the ski patrol. Skis were my natural environment. Skis, my dad used to say, it was really tough on your mom when you were born because you had ski boots on.
Trying to squeeze them things out? Are you kidding me?
That's right. So we went on this trip, and the ice climb, I couldn't come up with all my gear. This guy, Tim, was from a very wealthy family. Dad bought him a brand new car to come to school, paid for all his gear. Dad had lots of dough, and Tim was a great guy. But I didn't have all the gear. And so I had to borrow and rent, and I came up short with my gear. I came up with one axe instead of two, and I had a hammer, which is significantly shorter, which meant my swing was shorter. And I also had to grip the hammer on an axe. You can set it in the ice and let go and hang on a strap. So there's some relaxation. I know it sounds like it's crazy. You're 400 feet up on the ice. You set this thing and you can relax, but you can, and relax your muscles. But the hammer, no could do. So that combination of the extra exertion of grip and the shortness of the swing delayed our climb by hours. I became very slow. And I should say I talked Tim into this. He was not for it in the beginning. He's like, we should give up this ice climb. And I was like, no, man, no, I can do this. And so I could do it, and I did do it, but I set both our lives at risk. And it was the most traumatic night of my life. I froze to death. The sun went down as soon as we reached the top of this climb, 500 or 600 feet up. We weren't far from the Icefields Parkway. We're in Alberta, Canada, north of Banff, south of Jasper. Most beautiful place, unbelievably beautiful. But we knew we were going to die as soon as the sun went down. We had backpacking and hiking. You can go up a trail and turn around and come back if the weather turns.
Mm-hmm.
Ice climbing, rock climbing, you can't just turn around and go back. You have to follow the route, and the route's there for safety. So we had to complete our climb, which we did, and we were sitting on this ledge, and the temperature dropped about 30 degrees in a couple of minutes, and hypothermia began, which were violent. The shivers of every portion of my body, my tongue, my lips, my eyebrows, everything. The whole thing was all this one big twitch, and we realized that we were going to die as we sat there because we were 500 or 600 feet up on a sheer cliff with no more extra food and nothing to keep us warm. And I want to emphasize this was a day climb, and we were the last team to begin the climb and the last team to finish. But there were other teams on the ice that day, and nobody carried sleeping bags and stoves with them. Everybody was a climb up and a climb down. That was the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that I probably should have brought something with me, but I didn't. So hypothermia continued through the night. It got worse and worse and worse. It steals your brain. It makes you uncoordinated. I had frostbite on all my digits. I've got all my digits. There are parts of me that are still numb, parts of me that hurt every time it gets cold. I took off my gloves. I don't know if you saw that. I wear half gloves most of the time. When the temperature gets below 50 degrees and it's blowing outside, I get cold. That's just, my thermometer got all messed up. So hypothermia and frostbite and a 3-pitch descent on a sheer cliff in the dark, roped together, and it's hypothermia not only steals your coordination, and if you ever get jumped into a cold river, really like an icy cold river, and if you're in there long enough, your muscles start to get thick, like they don't want to move. That is a whole body experience where everything is hard to move and the brain begins to freeze, so it loses some of its capacity for reason. So we started making poor choices, even though we knew better, because we were getting dumber.
For those
That's what happens.
For those that don't understand what a 3-pitch is, can you elaborate or find a way to equate that?
Sure. So you have a length of rope, and say the rope is 150. Say the rope is 300 feet long if you stretch it out, and then you double it. Now it's 150 feet or 100 feet, and a 3-pitch climb is 3 of those: 3 lengths of the rope up, 3 lengths of the rope down. Each one is a pitch.
Wow.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
And so I think we had a 150-foot rope. I think that's what we had. And I mean, like a 300-foot rope with a 150-foot length.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'm glad you asked. If you have any, in my book, I've been accused of I was being too technical in the book. So I've been erring on the side of not being technical, and I'm glad you asked. If you get any questions.
Oh, we'll get you through this for everyone. Don't worry about that.
Cool. Thanks, brother. So as the night went on, the temperature continued to drop. And as the temperature continued to drop, we had to continue. The only way we could stay warm was by moving. But yet by moving, we were depleting our energy. And I was a skinny mini. I was strong, but I didn't have any fat at all. So there was nothing to feed off of. I felt like toward the end, I was getting into ketosis, where it wasn't muscle it was consuming, but fat. It was muscle. So all night long, we had this pressure of, we got to keep moving or we're going to die. And yet every step we took, and the colder it got, the closer we came to death, because we were depleting our energy and it was still getting colder. So it was terrifying. And that's really what I'll sum up the entire night with. It was the most terrifying night of my life. And I say that as someone, I've been held at gunpoint a couple of times. I've been shot at. Someone tried to smash my head in and try to end me at one point in my life. None of those, all of those happened after my NDE. None of those compared to this. I was terrified. And one of the great things about Tim was that he had this capacity for compartmentalization. He could compartmentalize his emotional experience so that he could continue to be as reasonable as he could be. And I have the same thing. So we were like level-headed the whole night, compressing our terror, like keeping it off to the side, because you got to pay attention, because one false move, you're going to fall, 300 feet. So we finally fight our way over. We get through 2 pitches, make some mistakes, terrible things happen, gets colder. We finally make it down to the top of the last pitch. And now it's sometime after midnight. I don't know what time it is. I don't have a watch. I didn't really care either, but we're on this ledge, and it was the length of the table behind you with 3 times the depth. There was a wall in front of us. And in that wall were holes that had been drilled, 2 holes with iron pins epoxied in and rings on them, carabiners attached, those clicky things, and straps, hoops of nylon tubing with another carabiner, because it was the top of the practice climb. This is a world famous climb called Cirrus Mountain. That's the mountain. It's Weeping Wall, and so, which is why people go ice climbing there. But it's also a rock climbing. And so there's this sheer face up with this previously installed equipment so that you could just climb up and then rappel right down again and not leave your gear behind. And plus, it was safe to be up there. So we're clipped into this system, 100, 150 feet up, and it's the first time we're safe all night. So now we know we're not going to fall. I have the rope. Tim's to my left. My feet were on fire with cold. It's cold. If you've ever put your hand on a block of ice
Mm-hmm.
or stuck your hand in a bag of a bag of ice cubes or ice water, how long can you keep your hand in there?
Not very
It
long
starts.
at all. Yeah.
No, it becomes like fire.
Right.
Right.
So my feet, my hands, my face, everything, I was on fire. And my feet had gone beyond fire at this point and become numb, which meant they weren't really usable so well. So I could I could clump around, but I had to watch my feet because I couldn't really feel them anymore. So we're standing there on this ledge, and this is the situation we're in. And I'm clipped in. I've got the rope. Tim's to my left. I took the rope and I tied it to my harness. I took the other end of the rope and I tossed it out around this corner. There was this craggy thing that we had come down. The moon had risen, I should say, too.
Mhm.
So this 3/4 moon, we could see better. And there was this corner. I took the rope, I tossed it out around, and I gave it a pull. And as soon as I pulled it, it laid into some rock somewhere and it jammed in there. I pulled it an inch, maybe 2 inches, and then it was stuck. And then I yanked on it as hard as I could. And the more I yanked on it, the tighter the wedge became.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to flip the line, finesse and make the wave form. But the rope was lying across the edge of the mountain. And so I could never get the wave form past the edge. So we were stuck, and now we're alone. At this time we were there. I'm not sure the number is correct, but it was something like 1.7 people per square mile in this entire place, and most of them lived in Calgary, in this
Wow.
massive province. This was completely empty wilderness,
Mhm.
even though there was a road running by. Grizzly bears and mountain lions and all that kind of stuff. Not this time of year, but that kind of wilderness. So we're alone up there with no hope of rescue, and nobody even really knows they knew that we were there because we'd signed into the log, but there was nobody coming to rescue us. So hypothermia continued to get worse, and I got hot, which is a crazy thing, but your body feels like it gets hot. And I unzipped my coat, which sped along the cold. And then I had this realization that I was going to die and I wasn't going to get out of this situation at all. So I had I surrendered to it. And when I surrendered to it, this peace came on me of acceptance. I accepted that this is it. And so my struggle went away. My fear went away. I just took it for what it was worth. What it was worth was my death. And there was nothing I could do about it. So I started thinking about my mom and my dad and why I was out west and how they didn't want me to go on this trip and that they were upset at me, generally speaking, and then they were upset at me at this and then I started thinking about God and then I started falling asleep. I fall asleep. I crashed to the rock, stood back up again, crashed to the rock, stand back up, and then I stood back up, and then this is when it happened. I had this large peripheral vision, black circle around my vision that collapsed really rapidly like a tunnel, and as it came down to this close, I was confused. I'd never seen such a thing before. I knew that it existed intellectually because I was in the ski patrol and they talk about this, but I had no idea. And so it closed, and as it closed, I started thinking I must be falling asleep again. But when it closed shut, I didn't fall asleep. I woke up. Suddenly all of my pain was gone. The mountain was gone. I could see, but what I was looking at wasn't the mountain anymore. It was this big black expanse that had it's contradictory. So everything I say from now on is metaphor
Mm-hmm.
and construct of language, but I could see the darkness. So, when you're in a room and you pull down the shades and you close the door and now you can't see the darkness. It's just dark. Well, I could see this darkness, and all of my pain was gone. And I knew that there was my self-understanding had shifted somehow. I knew that I was not just my human self anymore. I didn't know what I was, but I didn't know what was going on. I was confused. And as I watched this darkness and this state of surprise where all of my pain is gone, tiny, super tiny, tiny pinprick of light appeared. in this vast distance and rushed toward me across this expanse that, it was it the size of our galaxy? It sure looked like that to me, just massively expansive. And this singular light, it came fast as quick as that, like, and unconstrained by physics. It rushed across this field, this dark field, and filled my vision as it came to me. And it communicated to me without language, without concept, a direct information. You're coming with me. I'm taking you with me. And I thought, I'm not going anywhere. I don't know what's going on. I'm staying right here. And I kind of put up my willpower, and my willpower was zero in comparison. It just plucked me like a daisy, and now I am enveloped inside of this entity, which is massive. It's a clear, transparent intelligence, hyper meta intelligence, communicating to me its meta intelligence, communicating to me comfort. I'm not upset that I'm inside of this thing. I feel my connection to my human body severed. Like, it's no longer, there's no connection there. This is me. I am shaped like a human being, but I am made of light. And so I'm not made of molecules. I have a similar shape, and I'm being rushed back up the same trajectory that it had come down toward me. And I can see out of it. I can see into the darkness, and I have a second perspective. I am also this eye of God, traveling in parallel to this angelic entity, this intelligence, and I can see me in it. I can see it, and I can see me in it. But when I look from the self that's inside of this entity, I can't see me seeing me, but I can see me seeing me inside myself. It's I don't know how to explain it. I was superpositioned, and I get rushed up to this edge of this darkness where that light had first appeared, and then I kind of popped out, or it unfolded. I'm not sure exactly. There are parts of my NDE that are unclear to me. And over my lifetime since then, I've spent my lifetime trying to see even a tiny bit more, because I came back with 0.001% compared to what I experienced over there. A lot to learn for me. And so I popped out, and now I'm in this bigger void. And this bigger void is the size of the universe, and I am the only thing in it. But I am in contentment. I know that myself for who I am, and that I'd always been this energy. And my humanoid shape with the light made of light was gone. I was this expansive, this is all metaphor. I was an orb of consciousness itself. And my self-identity wasn't like it is when I think of my self-identity, I don't think of my thumb. I think of myself in my head. But there was no difference between my thumb and my head in this case, but of course I didn't have either one. I was a no-thingness and nothingness. There was nothing about me that was at all familiar to my earth life. But I knew that this was who I was and who I had always been. And so I had this deep experience of contentment, of self-knowledge, of remembrance, of calmness, of peace. And I could see in every direction at once, but there was this, and I could see this darkness was paradoxically illuminated. So I could see in it, and there was an edge to it. There was a place where there was a deeper darkness of infinity that I couldn't penetrate into. I couldn't see into it, although my vision, my understanding was a million times greater than it is here. But there was a place at which I couldn't see into. So I'm in this space, and I am 1,000 times content. I like, me again. This is me again. And I don't need anything else. I don't need anyone else. I have this existence. And then this deep darkness opens, and a light pours out of it, like a waterfall or an opening doorway where light is emitting from it. And it's these two things at once. It's this pure white light, but it's also, and it's one light. It's not like individual photons. It's somehow one field, unified field of light form, without differentiation, but simultaneously it is all of these other photons, like a bazillion, septillion, quadrillion of different colors, and they're all individuated, and they're all well, they're superpositioned with entangled with each other. That's what I want to say. They're entangled with each other, and they're all of the colors of the sky at night that I could see in those stars, and all these X-rays and ultraviolets, and the whole electromagnetic spectrum, and way beyond that. I had no eyes to see the colors that were presented to me, but they were vivid and real and them. So it had this singularity and plurality to it. It was a them and a one at the same time, and it wasn't switching from one to the other. It was simultaneous. And so this is the most beautiful thing I have ever encountered. And all I want is it. And because my thought is myself, my thought is my action. So I think I want this beauty. And so I move toward it immediately as it comes towards me. And I came up to the edge of it, and I touched it with, I should describe it to you. It had this solidity to it. It had this transparency to it, and it had translucency. So I could see this surface where it was all of these colors all at once, and the white light. I could see in its depth that was true too, and I could see through it into this tunnel that led into the greater darkness, out of which it had come. And so
if you can express the feeling, was it a desire?
Yes.
Okay.
Like a luscious desire.
Wow.
Like the best parts of lust and love combined with ecstasy.
Oh,
wow.
That's what I remember. And that's a good way of putting it.
That's wild.
And the crazy thing is, Lamont, is that it's everywhere here too. It's not, it has a fragment of itself inside of everything there is, but also especially apparent in people and animals and trees and nature. It's to a lesser intensity here, but it's the same thing. It's of the same quantity, but not the same. No, it's of the same quality, but not the same quantity.
Right.
And so I wanted it. I touched it with my being, and as I touched it, it tore me open and flowed inside me, and I entered inside of it. And it entered in me, and I was pulled in. It wasn't like I entered into it. It's like it enveloped me.
An entanglement.
An entanglement, exactly, interior and exterior, and then all of these things happened at the same time. I talk about it in a sequence, but there's no time there. It's all time and no time. It's time inverted. It's time we can't imagine. It's forward and backwards and inside out. It's eternal now. There's always this sense of the for me, this permanent presence of the energy of the divine itself, expressing in its own fullness with this consistency that is so consistent, it's always the same. And because it's always the same, it's always this now. So I enter into this, it enters into me, it envelops me. I hear, I see, I understand my soul nature. I hear my soul being called into being in the now, but also everlastingly. Like my soul has been always being called into being, and yet it's always being renewed. In the Bible, they talk about the renewal of the spirit. I'm always in the moment, being made constantly. And I can hear the divine calling me into being, like a name. And I see this part of myself. I understand my everlasting nature. And then I have this experience where this I appears to me. And in this appearance of this I reform into like a lesser version of my orb self. I experienced more like the light being self I was when I was being carried back up. But the light isn't from me now. This I that is outside of me is seeing all of my human life that I just lived, illuminating me from the inside out, making me exist. This calling into being wasn't just my soul self, this higher self of me, but it was also this lower self of me, the human self of me, always being called into being continually, always in the now. And so this light is shining inside of me, and my life experience is my life review. There is no part of my life that has not been lived with me as me by the divine. This illumination has always been with me, and it's speaking love to me. It's speaking love to me. I have always loved you through all of these things that you did, through everything. I am you. You are me. I lived my life through you. And then I see this as myself is illuminated, I have this sort of regression to selfishness. And in this regression to selfishness, I see these dark shadow parts of my life, the things that I had done to other people that I hid, and things I'd done for myself that I had hidden. And there weren't a lot of them, but they were pretty powerful. There was like a dark hole inside my light. And this dark hole inside my light was the absence of the light. But 99% of me was made of light. But the thing that was most obvious to me was the darkness. And so I tried to hide this darkness. I tried to like put it somewhere where it couldn't be seen. And as soon as I became aware of it, while I tried to hide it, I was thrown inside it. And so now I'm inside of this, my own darkness. And I go through this hell of an experience, this purgative fire of divine love, where I experience all the pain that I gave away in my life, all of the darknesses that I caused, all the wounds that I had created. And I am in two places at once. I am, and here's my Jesus on a pencil. So it was a Christmas gift. And so this is me over here, and I'll use my toothbrush. My toothbrush is all of these other people in my life. So my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, my cousins, everybody in my life, and me over here. And I was all of these people, and I was this person. And inside of me, I was experiencing all of my emotions, my jealousies, my angers, my reasoning for hurting them. And then over here, I was experiencing from their perspective, from their experience, from inside of them, all of their reactions to all of the pain that I was causing them. Their pain, their hurt, their wound, their brokenness, whatever I was dealing out, I felt their experience of it. And I could do that because God was everywhere, living in their lives and living in my life, and was showing me who I had been in my darkness. And all of the pain that I had given away turned out to be a lot more than I thought I had given away. It was proportionately much larger, and it all accrued to me. It wasn't, and I wasn't being judged. This wasn't, there was no, justice up there pounding the gavel. Guilty. This was a revelation of my own action in comparison to the perfection and unlimited nature of the infinite love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made this comparison. The love, so much love, like a huge 300-foot wave of love kept pouring down on me, like this warm, beautiful honey. While I am embittered by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so my judgment of myself produced this shame in me for having been so much less than this beautiful love that was present to me. And when that happened, I saw all of humanity, like this vision of every person who was living, and everybody. So the criminals and the not criminals, the people at war, the mothers giving birth, everybody. And there was this radical equality. And the equality was in our humanity, in the same sort of brokenness of selfishness that creates all this pain, and all of it in comparison to this unlimited light. And so I came back with this understanding of my own flawed nature and my own light, which enables me to see the same in everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So that even the people we were talking before we went on the air, the people who've set themselves up as enemies in my life, trying to ruin me, and I don't say that lightly. Was a real significant thing. I loved them anyway, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't not see.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of times I didn't want to see. but I couldn't help myself, which didn't also mean that I wasn't, putting up a fight against it. I didn't like bullies very much.
It sounded like that this whole experience is one affable, constant construct of different polarities, and you had no rhyme or reason to even drive this construct.
Oh no, I kept my mouth shut for 2 decades afterwards, because the last thing I wanted to do was tell anybody this thing had happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, afterwards, I sounded crazy to me. My own thinking, I wondered, what happened to me? Am I insane? But I couldn't help but see what I saw, what I was seeing in the world, and how radically different I became afterwards. And everybody knew it, even though I didn't talk about it. Everybody knew I was entirely different. Nobody knew why. I couldn't hide my eccentricity.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this experience of shame and understanding of the limited nature of all existence, not just human beings, but everything in our universe is of a limited nature in comparison to this unlimited. I can't even describe. How do you talk about infinity? You can't.
Yeah, you definitely.
By nature,
I've tried. Yeah, I've tried. You can't. Yeah, people ask me what it space look like, and I would just tell them it looked like something the Hubble or the James Webb would produce, but it was different because I was consciousness, I was space, I was all of it, and I was bigger than that. So things on a size scale were so minute to a physical or human experience. Like I would tell them the galaxies, I would look at them and they would just come to me. Like I didn't have to travel. If I thought about it, I was there, And how do you explain that? Like another thing that I keep telling people is there was no hot and cold. There is no weather where like you just are. Like everything is like, I don't want to say warm, but it's a natural existence of you, but outside of you. Like, and I struggle to tell people I didn't know there was a me inside of me when I had my experience, and I was just this all consciousness. Like I could breathe in the universe, it'll breathe in with me. Like there was no separation from it. And I could see a tunnel go from that end of the cosmos all the way to that end of the cosmos, right beneath my proverbial feet. Because like Peter, I didn't have a body, but I had this 360-degree perception of where I was at. Like I could see all and perceive all. Like there was no arms, legs. When I say down, that's a poor description of down, right? Because in space, there is no right, left. I can perceive something below my energy, and it was a tunnel, and I thought about it, and bam, in it. So I don't care how you try to explain anything, Peter. No one's ever going to get it, and I had to become comfortable with that. The human vernacular is of a very fine scale of trying to express something that you've never seen before, especially when it comes to color.
Yes, 100% with you. I found that the only thing that really can be channeled is the divine energy itself. Is the presence of the unspeakable, and it's unspeakable because it's so far beyond physical matter. Your experience sounds similar to mine, and the energy self, and the no up and the no down. So after I go through this hell and I listen to the love being given to me, I accept it. I abandon myself, my selfishness, because the love is so powerful. I've always loved you. I love you all the time. And so once I listen to this, then I expanded, and I wanted. I'm going to stop there for a second and talk about knowledge. I had a similar experience to yours in that when I wanted to understand how the cosmos worked, and all that knowledge was instantaneously inside of me. I was part of the cosmos itself. It's like I'm a line of code in this massive code, but I'm still a line of code. Or as Rumi talked about it, a drop of water in the ocean. Where's the drop begin? Where's the ocean end? It's this unitive state. And so I have this expansion that's going on inside of me. And when I accept this love, it pours itself into me in all these fragments on earth, truth and love and knowledge and beauty and bliss and paradise and joy and understanding. They're all one thing. And I expand to this point at which I'm in front of the darkness and the light is pouring into me, and I become the light itself. But I felt like any more light and I would have been enfolded back into the darkness. And not that the darkness is bad, because it's not. It's a description of infinity. It's dark because it can't be spoken of, because it can't be experienced except for by itself. And so when I'm in this expanded state, in communion, I have this other state where I am this simultaneously this singular photon that's entangled with this field of photons. As I talked about before, this field of photons is endless. It's infinite. It's just enormous. And I don't know how many photons, as many as you can imagine. And I am one of them, and I'm connected to all of them because all of them are all connected to each other. And yet I'm also outside. I'm still in this darkness, and there's this field of light. And this field of light is, in totality, is the consciousness that I can perceive. The oneness of being itself is communicating to me, showing me myself as part of it. And yet I have this also somewhat limited nature, because I am one photon of this field, of which I am also connected to all of them. And I'm outside in this darkness. This field is in front of me. And in this darkness, I again see my soul self, which is like a lower part of me. And this soul self is emerging from the greater darkness, and as a whole, like it comes out formed, and it travels through this void space that I'm above. And then all of these lives start like little marbles inside of this long tube, and there's all these little tiny worlds, and those are my incarnations. I'm and they're all simultaneous, so there's an order to them, there's like a sequence to them, but they are also simultaneously happening as I watch. And so my oversoul is experiencing all of these lives, but all of these lives aren't my oversoul. They're all inside of, like olives in an olive loaf. You know, this long loaf of bread that all these little olives are in. It's like all the worlds are olives, and they're all me, but none of them are me. And so I see all these lives, and I want to see inside, and I'm allowed to see inside too. I get sucked down into two lives. I become a human being, and I have hairy legs and olive skin, and I get sandals on, and I'm walking on a dusty road, and there are palm trees and low houses, and I'm with a group of guys, and we're speaking in a language that I understand, but I can't tell you what it is. And we're having a conversation. I get the sense that we're like a spiritual group of guys. We're having some kind of spiritual conversation, and they ask me a question, and I begin to answer, and I'm sucked out.
Wow.
And now I'm stuck in, like, going back in chronological time, I become this little tiny like lizard thing. I'm stuck inside. I'm in this body. I got eyeballs. I can see this world. I don't know that I was a lizard, but I was in a shadowy place, and the world looked entirely different. And I felt like there were predators. I had this sense of being prey. And then I was pulled out of that. And then I was somehow brought back closer to. So here's this really weird part of this. So my connection to the life I had just lived was severed, and yet it's still going on. So there is still a world. All of these lives, they're all these things are dead in the temporal world, but they're all alive in this place.
Right.
And so somehow I get reconnected to this life I had just finished as Peter, and I'm sort of reduced in size, and I think about my parents, and I think, this is going to be terrible for them. And I say, am I dead? I haven't gone into the darkness. I haven't enfolded back inside of you fully. Am I dead? And the voice is, yeah, you're dead. I said, well, what about my parents? And remember, all this is happening at the same time.
Mhm.
I'm telling it in a chronology, but I
It's
don't know how it happened.
duality, dude.
Yeah,
It's just, yeah.
So I'm swept across this heaven, this womb of God, and to this edge of energy, where this heavenly energy becomes matter, and part of me is stuck out like a turtle's head into this universe, and it's our universe, and I can see all the galaxies, and I am like you described. I am a part of this. I am 99.9% of me is in heaven. I'm made of this energy, but while I'm looking out into this space, I have some kind of connection to that material world, and my attention is brought back to the what I see as the origin of the universe, but maybe the Big Bang, but definitely the now. As it's always being there's this impenetrable darkness out of which this light is flowing, and this light is being woven into the very fabric of the universe itself, making up everything that there is.
Mhm.
And inside of everything that there is, quasars, darks, holes, black holes, and uh, bacteria, everything is made of this divine light that is woven. Nothing, everything exists because there's this weaving of it, of its own self, inside of everything. And as I understand this weaving, it's speaking to me inside of this heaven, from all of this universe, from the darkness, and it's showing me love. And that this love is the totality of all that there is, and in an expansive size that is, when I say unconditional, I also mean infinite and unending. It
Mhm.
is the most powerful thing that makes everything exist. And all of that love is aimed right at me.
Yep.
Like, it's for me. I am as part of creation, the I get the same amount of love as all of creation, which is all of the love.
Correct.
And as I'm looking into the darkness, this impenetrable darkness, other universes are popping out like scallop shells, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And that I have this understanding that my universe is just a tiny, tiny part of
Yeah.
this much greater physicality of existence. And as all of this is going on, and I feel like the most beloved there has ever been in all of the universe, because of all of this immense love is laser beamed right at me, my attention is brought back to Earth, and Earth is this um like a it has substance to it, but it's also a hologramish, because I can see through it.
Mhm.
And I can see, by seeing through it, I can see every single person on it at the same time, but it's also in live time. There's like, I can see the sun, and it's night on this side and daylight on this side, and everybody's living their lives. So it's like live time. I see everybody in live time.
Mhm.
People are sleeping, people are awake, everything's going on. And inside of every single human being, which was the dominant light radiant from the planet, was this speck of golden light, which is the thing that's woven inside of everything there is.
Mhm.
And this golden light is the divine itself, living our lives with us. And the planet was covered with this thick fog or foam through which people couldn't see the light that was inside. I could see it, but I could see that they couldn't see it. And
Mhm.
so that there were wars and crime and pain and suffering that we were doing to each other. And the voice was only speaking love to me. Everything is me, and I love myself. Everything is loved, and nothing is lost to me. Everything unfolds back into me because I am everything. And because I am love, everything is loved. And so then I see my parents' faces sort of emerge from the surface. And there's parallel parents, mom and dad, and mom and dad. And mom and dad, I can see me going back with them, and the level of suffering that they will have. And then I see me not going back with them, and this immense amount of suffering that they would have. And then I can see their deaths. And in their deaths, I see that they're just like me now. I am in this state of paradise and bliss and awe and understanding, and they become just like me. And that the length of my life, my recent life, and their lives, snap of the fingers. And so time didn't matter. The voice said to me, you can stay or you can go back, but it's all the same. It comes out just the same.
Mhm.
And so I look at my parents, the voices welcoming me to stay. And I am given this choice, and I see that without me, they're going to suffer a great deal, and with me, they're going to suffer. And I choose suffering over great suffering. And I'm just thinking about my mom who's suffering right now. So I choose to go back and I say, okay, if I go back, if I choose to go back, can I come back here to you, to this experience of unconditional love and union and light and bliss? And the voice says, yeah, you can come back here. I say, well, then I choose to live my life. And it says, you won't live your life, and throws me out. And I speed back, encased inside of this angelic entity, which itself was superpositioned also. It was entangled. It was the divine, the fullness of the divine, and a lesser aspect of it for, I don't know, practical purposes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crushing me as I went and reducing me. And as I was reduced or reformed, I saw this big, huge beam of light next to me. And I looked back through this transparent being, and I could see the edge of darkness out of which this beam of light came. And it ordered me to choose light. And as it ordered me to choose light, it showed me all of these doors, in the center of which was this beam of light. And all of these doors were radiating out like petals of flowers with decreasing illumination to the outer edge. And it said, choose light, choose a life. And I chose a life. I chose some level of selfishness. I think it wanted me to just choose the light, but it gave me this choice: choose the light, choose a life. I chose a bit of both. And then this suddenly, as soon as I made these choices, and I can think of some of them, I was like, I want to be a writer. I want to be anyway. So the door opened. I went down this tunnel, all of these doors inside this tunnel connected to all these other probable lives to live. And I got to the end of this tunnel, and I was stuffed back in this body again. I awoke to a world of pain, confusion, and Tim hanging over me, screaming at me, "You're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead." And then I open my eyes and he repeats, "You're dead, don't die, don't die, don't die." And then he's like, "You're not dead. I thought you were dead." He pulls me to my feet. The rope comes free. We self-rescue. And I'm an entirely different person.
Jeez.
I don't know. I don't know how. Okay, you can't feed a baby a steak dinner and potatoes. And when you passed essentially a proverbial baby. And Source or God gave you a freaking steak sandwich. How has your mind and your mental processes, like, how haven't they not fractured with so much information?
Oh, but they did fracture.
Do tell.
Yeah. And it wasn't just one fracture. It was a series of fractures. And I wanted to make a joke and say that I had no teeth to chew the steak, and they stuffed it down my throat anyway, and then I got constipated. And that's kind of what happened. It broke me. It broke me in a pretty significant way. I if you've seen the movie Avatar or the second Avatar, I was like that. I was in a whole new world, in a whole new body, with a whole new self-understanding. And I was marooned on this island, this planet. I was in exile from my home. I didn't understand what had happened to me. I had no brain. I had no language to think about it. All I had was the experience of the energy of it. And I knew that I had been there, but I couldn't explain to myself what I had been, and I didn't know what I had become. I had to live into this new isolation. And the weird thing is that I was part of the space again. So in my NDE, I was in union. I was a line of code. I'm a line of code again. I am part of this. I got a physicality here. And I live above myself, and I can. This is the weirdest part of it was I could see myself living in the world. I'd never had this separation of my egoic self from my true self, and now I'm like two people at the same time, and I've got to live in the world with a mask on so that nobody finds out that I have this thing going on that I can't explain. And so immediately thereafter, I totaled the car on the way home, and I had to hitchhike back from Canada to Montana, and Tim took a bus, and uh, I found that the only place that I had to be myself was inside myself. And so I began immediately this meditative journey into the quiet where I could listen to the voice calling me, feel the energy being present to me. And within a couple of weeks, I was in this theater troupe, a university-based theater troupe, and we were leaving on this 10-week, 24,000-mile tour. And so instead of sitting in the van with everybody else, I sat in the back of the pickup truck that towed the trailer with all our gear in it, and I isolated. So my first reaction for managing my shattering was self-isolation and interior practice, because only in this space was I normal. And fortunately for me, this was a theater in sign language. And so I rarely needed to use my voice because I couldn't control my emotions. And so I could, because we had members of our troupe who were hearing impaired. And so I always spoke in sign language. I stopped speaking in language. Everything we did was in sign language. I used language as I had to with other people, but I kept it at a minimum so as not to betray my transformation. And I continued. I began a very deep practice with Kriya Yoga and centering prayer practice, a non-attachment practice, and energy connection practice. And I did that in order to find balance in the world, because I found, as I said before, that my really only place I can balance in the world is in the energy itself. Uh, and so the more I practiced, the thinner my veil became, the more frequently I had massive mystical experiences that continued to shatter me. And I had begun my life this way. I had a series of these when I was a kid that only took in a recognizable context after I died, and could look back and see how these things prepared me for what had happened to me. And then, well, I kept my shatterings to myself. I couldn't hide them from my wife. She experienced them pretty straight on. And sometimes they would last a few days, and sometimes they would last hours. But every single time I came back different, more refined, when I say more refined, I don't mean more sophisticated with my wine choice. I mean less of me and more of light. And that this constant evolution of myself caused a necessary counteraction in my relationship to my family. So every time I changed, I couldn't help but be who I was becoming. And unfortunately, sometimes that meant my self-acceptance hurt others, as it hurt my kids when I finally came out of the closet and told them I had died, and that I loved the beloved more than I loved my life or anything in it. What they heard was, Daddy doesn't love me. It is been a blessing and a curse, I'll tell you.
Right.
And the practice of non-attachment is what has been allowed me to accept my own self as I live in the world. And I still make mistakes, and I still hurt my kids. And, I'm just a human being. I don't like it when I do that. I might not like myself very much when I do that, but I'm never not in love with my original self. I'm never not in love with who I actually am.
Right.
And the more I cultivate that relationship, the easier it is for me to accept my flaws and live my life in this balance. And so there's this point between my highest self and my lower self, my mortal self and my soul self. There's this place of balance where if I back foot, some martial arts in my background, if I put my weight on my back foot, I then have more lightness in the world. And the more I weight myself to the backside, the more balance. So if I'm weighting myself to the backside, I shift my center of balance back. And by shifting my center of balance back, I have control here, I have control there. And by being in this single place, I find that my reintegration in my life is more manageable. And that's really all I'm trying to do, is manage myself in the world.
When you said that about your kids and how you needed time to, reflect and love yourself, some would say, "Oh my God, he's living such a solipsistic life. Like he's just this person of self-absorbance." From if people are getting that sort of impression, I have to tell them too that it's, if you don't start with loving yourself or getting back in contact, loving yourself, you are no good to the ones that you think you love around you, because
Right.
it's like you can't have that burden. And I'm not trying to discredit it, because I do the same thing that he's talking about. I was in a selfishness on the other side. I came back with some acute depressions. I never even told you. And the ex-wife that I was with at the time, she pretty much, like, she got tired of me talking about it. And for her, it was like, I don't know what to tell you. So I couldn't go to her, right? So I had to just, like Peter, I was just, fuck it. I'm going to stay in my shell and just, LaMar's going to keep himself comfort by dealing with it himself. And I was my best friend at the time. So I was like, okay, this is what we're going through. I'm not crazy. I've experienced this. Let's figure it out. I had no one to turn to. I didn't want to tell people, because you do sound crazy. How do I tell somebody where I went and come back and go, you know what? I love you and we're all connected. They look at you like you're freaking Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, well, you could have told me. I get ear ringing vents all the time.
Right, but there's a certain...
And I'm guessing that's different.
It's a certain vulnerability that it rips from you, that you're literally putting yourself out there as this whole different person now. Like, I'm not the same person after the experience.
After hearing it from both of you, it sounds like, and I don't know how to phrase this, but it sounds like you guys came back more sentient. Would that be a fair description?
I mean, I would guess so.
Especially if you're speaking about yourselves in a third person aspect, right?
Well,
where you're looking at yourself and it's this avatar moving in this light plane, but
so
there's still some sort of higher level of consciousness that you've gained, but there's still some sort of severance that hasn't 100% been reconnected again.
Well, for me on the other side, like when I would say to myself, like, I had no idea there was a me inside of me, and I was accountable to my higher self, if that sounds weird or not. And now that Peter was telling his story and I'm putting things together now, and I got that overwhelming sensation of love, that blanket of love that engulfed me and told me everything was going to be okay. Like, all the universe's love was just centered on me. Like, I was the only thing existing. Like, how can I receive all this and this not be shared? And now I'm reflecting on that, thinking, oh my God, what if that was my higher self giving me that blanket? Because I was talking to I was so accountable of, why didn't you do that? You were supposed to do this. We wanted to go down here and do that, and my higher self and I are having a conversation. And now I'm thinking about what Peter's saying. How extraordinary is it that our angelic selves can surrender a portion of ourselves to go live a physical life, and not just one, but a multitude, and still be you outside of those physical lives as they're playing out.
Right.
And we just bring it back the information. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's hard to explain, but you're just not alone, and you're not you. You're not this physical freaking body. Like
Right.
my essence is consciousness, right? And it's just hard to explain that duality.
What say you, Peter? Is it still like that cord isn't completely connected, and instead of 1 foot in, it's both feet in, and there's just something else that has to be said about this different aspect of you?
Everything that your brother said, I agree with.
Mm.
You said it really well too. Yeah, so I can't help but being both feet in here because I'm in the world. I literally have both feet in the world.
Yep.
But the truth of myself is that I'm not. I inhabit this form, and even more so, it's not so much that I'm in this form as so much as this form is inside of me. And that my and yes, my internal turning was sometimes misunderstood as Peter's totally into himself again. Not in society at all. He's doing his own thing inside his own little world. But really, it was the only way that I could deal with the exterior world. And the funny thing is that my job, as I became a minister, in order to, and I did that, I hid inside the church so that I could continue my interior spiritual life and my studies so that I could figure out what the heck had happened to me and how do I live with this in the world. So I was hiding out. But my job was to love people and to help people in real physical ways. Their grief, their mourning, their dying, their living, their birth, their wounds, the violence, the poverty, the hunger, the homelessness, right inside of people's lives. And so my job was to be completely integrated into these intimate aspects of people's pain while working on my own interior, which was my real world. And so I lived in these two spaces, and I found that the only way that I could live in the physical world was by more deeply connecting to my interior world. And I know that near-death experience is now coming into the public square. And I want to thank you guys for having me here and for this conversation, because this is one of the best conversations I've had in a long time about
Thank you.
this.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Yes.
Thank you.
Extraordinary.
This near-death experience public square conversation that we're having here will maybe provide the opportunity for us to, as a collective, to do, at least for me, what I think my job is here is just bring the light, and that's it. Just to try to be in the world. That's it. Just be in the world, whatever I'm doing. And whether I've got a job to do, I mean, I've chosen to be a communicator because of this, but I could have been an architect. I could have been a carpenter. I could have gone in business with one of the guys I was pounding nails with. And I would have been great with this guy. I liked him and we got along. And so, but it really wouldn't have mattered what I did for a living. What really matters is what I do in my being. And by going into this internal place again and again and again with my interior practices, it wasn't actually creating a shell around me. What it actually does is it thins the shell around me and the shell inside of me. And the thinner that these become, the more true I become to who I actually am, the more light flows into the world, no matter what I'm doing, even when I'm making mistakes, even when I do dumb things. Because it's my being, it doesn't really have much to do with me, Peter, as a person. Of course, it impacts that.
Right.
It makes me, I become less reactive and more responsive. I stop and I think. I carry peace inside of it. I try to live peaceably in the world. I don't put up with bullies, but I don't fight back like I want to murder somebody. I just, call them out for what they are.
Right.
Um,
I like how you said that, Peter. I like how you said that it's the thinning of your proverbial shield or walls. I love how you, because I feel the same way. I'm not as thick, if that makes sense. I prefer my shield to thin out so I can perceive more and gain more and express my true self more and get rid of all the bullshit that comes with it.
I think that's a subject that needs to be at hand, is for people who have these experiences. It's the loss of something that is not being into question here. I think in most aspects, it's, oh, you've gained something.
Right.
You've gained something over me. But the bigger question is, you've lost something. You're not the same Peter. You're not the same LaMar anymore. And almost it or maybe your higher selves replaced you with a very special software that now, I don't even know how to say it, but I don't know if it's dictating your new course, but it's making you very sensitive as to how you stay on this highway with so many detours, if that makes any sense.
I'm definitely cautious of what I say because I know what I say affects many, because the words are tangible and it's cause and effect. I mean, you would have to believe that. It's not just the physical action, it's the actual thought that you manifest. So this could be very well a change. Well, I'm going to say it is a change of course for me in my whole thought process, because I've lost something. I've lost the fact that I don't have that sense of what am I looking for? Like ignorance is bliss, living a human life. Shit, Peter and I just, not to say you, but just life is life. Ignorance is bliss. I believe in this, I believe in that. Judge this, judge that, right? But when you get slapped in the face with the all-knowing, or the God slap, you don't readily come back from that normal. Quote normal, like define normal. I don't know but whatever parameters there are, yeah, we've forfeited some of that, and you have no choice. There's no choice the way you come back. Mm-hmm. It's that profound.
Yep.
Go ahead, Peter?
I was going to say that plenty were the days that I wished it hadn't happened to me.
Wow.
I too, sir. Okay. If I tell you what, if a spokesman from the other side, Peter, came walking in this door and he said, well, you did great. You can stay and live it out, see where it goes. Or if you want to come home with me, you know what's there. What say you? And not tell my brother and family this all the time. And I'm not a solipsistic person. In a heartbeat, I love you guys very much, but I'm out the fucking door.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Because until you've tasted something like that, it's like a very, very bad drug. Until you've tasted the other side and the amount of love we get there versus here, it doesn't equate. It's not even a second thought for me.
What does this world look like, Peter, if everyone knew? Science came out, breaking news, CNN, Fox, like all the mainstreamers covering this. Science, major breakthrough. There's life after death. Here's why. What does this world look like?
Well, I'd be all in favor of that. I'm in favor of all the scientific research that's going into consciousness now, because I think they're going to discover what we already know. Mm-hmm. But there's two types of knowledge. There's head knowledge and there's heart knowledge. And this is that would be head knowledge, and it'd be important because then the atheists and the materialists would have physical evidence to upset their notions, and they would have to deal with that. So there would be a social, there'd be social and cultural change. But and that'd be positive. I'm all in favor that I want that to happen. But there's this other level that maybe would come as a result of that maybe people would just realize that there isn't a Baptist heaven and a Muslim heaven and a Jewish heaven and you know and all the subsets, that there is only the divine love, and maybe we'd have an opportunity for humanity to rethink itself. But there's this other aspect, this noetic knowledge, this experience of the energy itself, of the presence, and that's what I would hope would really come out of that.
Oh, all I heard, Peter, was blasphemy.
Oh yes, and heresy. Don't forget to put that
heresy.
in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that could be easily thrown at you like that. I mean, how do you defend that?
Let me show you my back. Oh, they're invisible. You can't see them.
Oh, all those daggers lined up there, Peter.
That's right. Oh, you can see them.
Yeah, I saw them, Peter. I saw
Of
them.
course. Yeah. No. Yeah. You can't kill me.
You think the suicide rate would jump?
I think that there would be those who come to understand that their despair is a disease over which they have no control, and there's only one way to end it. And that they might have find the freedom for the departure.
Well said.
The problem with suicide, of course, are those who are left behind.
Right.
I have been with terminal patients
Mm-hmm.
who have chosen to end their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an entirely different circumstance involving the families and a decision to reduce pain and suffering.
And a humane decision, if I might add.
Oh, my mom right now she'd be better off if she was able to die, but damn her heart, it's too strong.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, Peter.
You know?
Hold on. Wait, the fact that you just said that, this is what I'm talking about with synchronicity and when you're supposed to be in the same room as others. I just flew back from California. Our mom just had a pacemaker put in. Yesterday, she had a diabetic complication. Her blood sugar's out of whack. She's like, 2024 has not been a great year for our mother and us. We've been dealing with this, and it's freaking hard. The fact that you came in here and said with what you said about your mom, I had to stop you and just tell you, like, we're on the same wagon. We are on the same freaking wagon. And I just want to take just a minute just good positive wishes and vibes for our mothers right now, and for every mother that's going through something. Fuck every human that's going through something like this. It's hard.
Sure is. And having an NDE doesn't make it any easier.
It doesn't. I can't fix it.
Nope.
And this is the side that a lot of interviews I don't see is, the event in my eyes is it's a beautiful thing, but you don't know the weight that person is carrying from the actual event.
Right. Yeah, the viewers get the story and they go, how blissful, right? And I appreciate that. I really do. And it gives them hope, and I'm a fan of hope.
But there's an afterlife after the end,
Yes.
the NDE.
And sometimes that is very much challenging. I mean, I'm not suicidal. I don't have suicidal ideations. But I'm telling you, it's like being stuffed into something you really didn't want to come back to.
There's no suffering on the other side. It's not like it's a memory of suffering that's ended. It doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back here, where everything is suffering, heck, ripping my toenail, as small as that or as big as a stroke, or worse. I was suicidal for the longest time.
Mhm.
I was depressed too. I knew that I couldn't take my life because I knew that I couldn't die. So so what if I kill myself? I'm still going to be, I'm not going to kill my soul. I didn't make my soul. I didn't make me. I am eternal. So I better stick it out. But it didn't stop me from praying for dying every day.
Right.
Take me home.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here anymore. I finally integrated enough that after my second NDE, that's really what did it for me. I'm fine with being here now.
Right.
But I've known a bunch of people who've taken their own lives, family members and friends and community members.
Mm.
And there have been circumstances that those people have come back and visited others with apologies, but also expressing the bliss of the other side.
Mhm.
And the suffering of those who remain, it's a real thing. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
What
You
is your
don't-
mother going through, if you don't mind me asking?
Mom, it's a long and complex tale of sciatica and the grief of my sister and family. My dad became the protector, and he died a terrible death over 3 years. He broke his hip, and everything went down from there in a very painful and difficult way.
Mhm.
And then he died. My mother never never worked through her grief and her earlier wounds. He always protected her, and now she's had a series of strokes, and now she's trapped inside her body with the capacity for thought. But decades of grief and no barrier to prevent it and hold it in place.
Mm.
And so her life is an emotional misery, while it's a physical, well, it's impossible that she's ever going to get well.
Mhm.
And if she could leave, she would, but she can't.
Mhm.
So she doesn't.
Well, just know, they are our mothers, and our mother is a hospice nurse for over 30 years, and she's crossed over a lot of people. And the stories I could tell you, we'll have to just say for our meet and greet eventually. But just know, it's their journey. We're just here to support them. I'm not saying don't do anything, but I've come to the conclusion that it's inevitable. It's going to happen, and it's all right because at least you and I know where they're going. Now we will miss that physical presence, but if it's bad, I'm always a fan of just, if you're holding on for me or for anything else in this world, let it go. It's not worth it. If you need my approval, because some people do that. My mom has told us, let it go. Yeah, if it's just surrender to it.
I find it funny because I owned a horse for about maybe 10 years. His name was Dexter. And Dexter used to kick other horses and probably break bones and kill other horses. And we were living in Wyoming at the time. And we were prospecting another horse because Dexter was getting older in his years, and I needed a new, vibrant horse. I had a real connection with Dexter. If I looked left or if I looked right, that horse knew which direction I wanted to go. I mean, we had this real symbiotic relationship. And so we're prospecting this other horse. Well, it turned out this other horse kicked Dexter in his shoulder and broke his bones in many pieces. And he was suffering. And there was not one point in my mind or my wife's mind where we said, oh, let's try to mend this or fix this. The horse was physically in pain. You could see tears coming out of his tear ducts. And we made the decision, we need to just put Dexter down.
Mm-hmm.
I've owned animals that have broken bones, and I wouldn't let the vet put them down. I put them down myself, my responsibility, my loved one, and buried them in the backyard. So why in the natural fuck can we not do that for ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like Dr. Kevorkian was not an evil man. And I'm and what he did for people he should get a Nobel Peace Prize for the things he's done. And there's so many things that weren't even spoken of that he has done for families and people in conditions like your mother and people who are quadriplegic and people who are in these places where they just had enough. And how many times can they say it before you deem them crazy?
Right.
Their road and their spiritual travels on this realm has come to a close for them. So who are we to deny them what they really want? Who makes us source in God when we're just a representation of it?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So that's one of the things that really just burn me up. It just burns me out about society and how judgmental we are about certain things, but we can't make certain things stick, you know?
Yeah. Or like the suicide factor. I tell somebody, you know, some people ask me, what do you think happens to people that commit suicide? And I tell them there is just as much in a better place than you'll ever think about. And Peter said it's not their passing, it's how you're dealing with it, because they decided to take their life a little early. But shit, you can look at a smoker or a drinker and say that's a form of suicide. It's a slower pace of suicide,
Right.
but you're committing suicide as well.
Right.
So it's not a thing of the term. It's a thing of people just, if you've come to the conclusion where this physical experience is enough, who am I to say, you know, that you haven't had enough?
And we say it time and time again, Peter, there's no instruction manual when you come out of the womb. When we started this podcast, there's no script, because in life, there's no instruction manuals. Get behind the camera, do what you want to do. When we're back here writing music, we're not in here having a debate. It doesn't look like our forefathers back in the day with wigs on and we're sitting here yelling at each other and throwing paper and drawing. We're we're unorthodox. We come to a conclusion and we want to take the human consciousness on a ride, which is going to lead to my next question. And I didn't ask you this question, and I damn sure didn't ask you, Peter. But it's been on my mind for a long time, and what better time to ask it is now. When you guys were on the other side, did you hear any music?
I didn't.
I didn't, and then I did. When I was dead, I did not. But in one of these other kinds of mystical experiences, I didn't just hear music, I was music.
Wow.
I was there was this ocean of harmonies and melodies and complexities, the choir of angels, the cosmic music, whatever. But I was made of sound. Can't tell you what it was. Symphonic, jazz, rock, punk,
All of
everything.
it. I like it. I like all of it. I'm gonna take this shit just a little brighter before we get out of here. I'm just gonna throw some shit at you guys.
I got a couple. I got one too.
Okay.
I have to have it.
And Peter, and Peter, go ahead and stew some shit up in your mind, because I know you have a same likable mind. But here's my whole thing, and this is the way I look at the afterlife and life. I would like to believe that I'm right, but I know that I'm right in my mind. What do you guys think if, like, let's just say the three of us are on the other side prior to this life, and we go, hey, Peter, you know what? Oh, Hank came back from that damn Earth thing I was telling you about, and this dude is 10,000 times more luminescent than you and I and this guy would ever think. Now, they tell us this whopping story on how tough it is, and I just have to believe I got the nads to go do it. What do you say we meet up? We all go out there and do it. We'll meet at this specific time this year, and we'll just tell the story and remind ourselves what we signed up for. But we have to make it a big hint that we are conscious that, you know, we've made this pact on the other side. Do you think that's a possibility where we were just casual, embodied little angels over there going, I bet you don't have the balls to do that Earth thing?
I think that the complexity of the structure of the cosmos is beyond my ability to confine, and so why not?
I think the two of you sent me kicking and screaming, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Well, fuck! If I'm going as a replica as you."
Yeah, yeah.
Well, so that brings up this thought that I had a while ago: is it must have been incredibly different for you, Lamont,
Yeah,
to have your brother who you like. Twins are, well, they twin, right?
Right.
They get this twinning thing going on, and
Mhm.
now your twin is this other guy.
yeah.
So I was thinking that if you did make that deal, you kind of set yourself up.
I did.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm so jealous. I'm jealous not of the road trip he went on, but now it's just like this bastard has another thing over me. He was born first, and now he's stepping out of the
He's
world
born again
first.
first.
Yeah, born again first. Twice. In one life.
Mean, you guys must have took me down screaming and kicking. I'm not going to this fucking place.
Yeah.
I see what you guys are going to do to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, how old are you, Peter?
65.
Well, he's 60. You look great for
Yeah,
65,
you do. What are you
sir.
drinking?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man.
Shit, man, you want to pass a
Well,
bottle?
no, I'm not. This is Jesus Christ.
Oh,
Right, yeah,
yeah.
that's
Well,
true.
and you got a pencil right up his ass. Now, I don't
I
understand
do.
that.
I think that's yes. Thank you for
That's
noticing.
a hell of a way to crucify the guy, Peter.
But he's smiling in this. He's got a little. He's got a little smirk.
well,
on him.
It's not that bad then. Well, now I'm like, did we just trick Peter and say, oh, yeah, we're right behind you, Peter?
Yeah.
Yeah, 20 years later. Yeah.
You go
jumps.
first.
Yeah, you go first. Yeah, you crazy
Yeah.
son of a bitch.
Hey,
I'll be right there behind you.
But we still
Let's
had
go get
our
some
meeting.
coffee.
Oh, my God.
Okay, let me and then we're gonna go into Lamont's world again because I like this world.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna ask you some probably weird things, and I just want you to play along because you just do things like that.
Okay.
You walk into a bar, and I don't know what type of drink you would order, but myself,
Moscow Mule. A
Moscow
Moscow.
Mule.
Moscow Mule. Okay, I'd probably get a bourbon, a hot one, no ice. And you walk into this bar, and you've had a couple of Moscow Mules in your copper cup, in your greeny, leafy substance of your choosing. And alongside you comes a monkey. Now, I don't know what species of monkey comes in, but it's a monkey for sure. And he sits next to you and he orders, let's just say he orders a banana daiquiri with vodka in it.
God.
And you happen to look over and this monkey literally ordered it in plain English. Your ears are like, what? Tell me this, Peter. What goes through your mind and what would you say and how would you react?
Let's see. I would say I've never had a banana daiquiri before. May I take a sip?
You would drink after a monkey? No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm
Yes,
listening.
I probably would. Well, my dog used to, your dog licks you in your mouth enough when you're a kid. So, yeah, I would try. I would engage that intellectual monkey in a deep conversation.
Okay.
And I would ask as many questions as possible. And wonder to myself, is this the precursor of the Planet of the Apes? Is this where I am now?
Oh, now you're dating ourselves there.
Yeah,
now.
but also I would, spiritually speaking, I would see the light inside the animal.
Mhm.
Animals, I would love. Okay, so let me put it this way. I lived on this island off the coast of Maine when I was the minister, and we had a flock of crows, and next to the parsonage was a 100-year-old apple orchard with all these exotic apples,
Mhm.
and that was uncared for, so it was kind of in dilapidation. But the crows loved the apples, and it got to the point where I was outside with the crows all the time, and I began to understand that they were having a conversation among themselves, and that they were sometimes talking about me. And so I engaged them in conversation on a regular basis. They would hang out and we would I never understood them. I understood some words, like there's the compost, there's the apple, there's that jerk standing over there giving us a hard time.
Yeah.
So I think that I would jump at the chance that I have an intellectual conversation with a species other than my own.
Okay. I like that. What other question? I mean, take this in a humorous form, but what other question would you ask this monkey, Peter?
I'd say, is it true what they say about monkey sex?
Oh, wait, now I'm curious.
Yeah,
What do they say
Pete?
about monkey sex?
Hold on.
Well, there's a lot of people who say that homosexuality is a thing that is abhorrent to nature, but science says that that's prominent in a lot of monkey species, and so
Right.
I'd be like, so tell me what you think about that.
Yeah.
And I would have to believe if this was a real situation and a monkey coming in asking for a drink and had a very great vernacular, one would be,
I already know where you're going.
where am I going?
You want me to just say it?
Yeah.
Why do you throw shit at people?
That would be my
Yeah.
first question.
Monkey sex is a close
It's a
second.
good one,
but
Peter.
Hold on here. Why are you throwing shit at people?
I would love to know that answer.
It's personal, Peter. You go to a zoo, okay, and people are marveling at this monkey, and he's just minding his own business, right? He's in the zoo. You already captivated the poor son of a bitch, and now you want to just sit there and look at him. Well, the monkey is not stupid. He's observant. He's going, well, if you're looking at me, here,
Look at this.
look at this shit.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right?
That's what I thought they'd be doing.
See
Right.
that? See
Right.
that?
Wouldn't you? Isn't that what people do too? It's just that they don't use physical shit.
Hey, we do it to our kids all the time. You know?
Hey, you're talking about kids. Well, you kids shit on you all the time.
Yeah.
Literally.
Literally,
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But damn it, we can throw a mental smorgasbord of shit their way and they wouldn't know what hit them from Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh,
my God.
Okay. You have one more question to ask this monkey. What would it be? Really sit and think about this, Peter. Damn it. It's the last time you're ever going to encounter this situation again. What else do you ask him?
Well, I'm trying. I would like to be funny, but I'd ask it about its spiritual life.
Oh,
Tell me
now
about your
see.
interior world.
God damn it, Peter.
Man, that's what I'm talking
Yes.
about.
To me, that's like, why do you throw monkey shit? What's the spirituality of this species? And how do you view us?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, those are that would require dinner.
That
Oh,
I'd invite
hell,
I'd invite the monkey to dinner.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd stop the daiquiris because you're probably not going to get a direct answer.
yeah.
You have to go in on dinner, absorb that alcohol, and shit. Maybe
Yep.
pass the guy a joint or something. Let's
Yeah.
get deep in
That's
this.
right. So did you guys find spliff first? You asked the monkeys?
Yeah. So what if they did? Like, what if they were just eating it versus, you know what I mean? It's a natural plant.
Right.
We're not the
Why
only
not?
ones privy
Right.
to marijuana. I would have to
That's
believe.
right.
You know what? I think if that happened to me, I think you're onto something, Peter. I think if that happened to me, I'd probably set my drink down. I'd run out to the car. I'd find me a doobie, run back in, and say, I really want to ask you some questions. But first, would you indulge with me? Because I think that would get the conversation and open everything up to all kind of
I think I agree.
yeah. I mean, I don't know how often you get around guys who propose such fascinating, fantastical questions, but damn it, Peter, you found yourself on the
Yeah.
right boat.
Especially that Peter also entertains our shit.
Yeah.
It's just a different level of thought process.
Right. There's going to be a part 2 because I want to hear about the second
Yeah.
NDE.
Yeah.
And there's a couple more questions I really want to ask.
Save them.
Yes.
Save them.